Hi everyone, so the first thing I did, just putting the furniture together. This was the bit where I used the instructions. After I put the furniture together and the main frame of the box, after that I just did my own thing, because obviously I wanted to make this look like an abandoned room miniature. Obviously at the minute everything's all bright and colourful because it's just a little model kit that I got online, and I paid about £12 for this one, I think, or this was the cheap one where I got it for about £8, and I just ordered stuff off Amazon. I'm not sponsored or anything, I have bought all the stuff out of my own money, and the reason I like to use kits is it saves me making absolutely everything from scratch if I don't feel like it. So instead of having to work out the shape I'm going to make the furniture and work out which individual pieces I need to cut and that sort of thing, it's already cut for me. It's a case of me just gluing it together and painting it to look how I want. So the first thing to put together was this little shelving unit, and it wasn't too bad actually. It's quite easy to put together. Occasionally with these, because they're like little cheap kits, you will get the odd bit of wood that's a bit warped, but this one seemed fine. I didn't notice any particular warping or anything, so it was really good. And I use hot glue because basically I'm lazy and don't want to faff about to try and find the proper glue that I need to use. Glue doesn't tend to come in these kits because obviously it's an import and there's problems with importing liquids, so they don't tend to include the glue in these. Or if they do, it's like a little bottle of white score glue, which is, bog standard PVA glue, which is fine and everything, but I don't like using it because of how long it takes to dry. It takes absolutely ages. I used it for a little bit of the project, but not for sticking the furniture together. I find with the furniture I need something that's going to set fairly quickly and hold everything together while I'm working on the next part of the furniture. And then these little strips stick together to form like a little fascia to make it look like the cabinet's got legs on, and to also just finish off the look of the cabinet. I do quite like the kits for these. When I did Tumble Down Cottage, I used there was a library kit on how to make your own little library, and I used one that was like a study kit as well. So I got a couple of kits I've put together and painted my own way to make the furniture in Tumble Down Cottage, and then I've also got some bits I made myself. And then for the toilet, like the bathroom in Tumble Down Cottage, that's actually a Sylvanian Families kit because it was the same sort of scale as what I've used. This is in I'm not sure whether it's, I think it's 1/24th scale, I think. It's 1/12 or 1/24 scale, I can never remember. So obviously the stuff is quite small, and this is designed to go in a very small box frame that comes with the kit as well. So again, that saved me having to make a little box frame. I could just use the one that came with the kit. The only difference I did is I glued the front on instead of putting the hinges on, because I find trying to put the hinges on is a nightmare because they're small and fiddly and it tends to split the wood on the frame. So I just glued the front of the frame on. This is the little cupboard that came with it, and it's quite a simple to put together little cupboard, quite straightforward, and it doesn't have a back on it because the front is solid. You can't tell that there's nothing at the back, which you could use to hide a lighting rig or anything like that, but because this is abandoned, I'm not worried about putting working lighting in, because at the end of the day it's an abandoned one. It wouldn't really have working lights usually. The advantage, as I've said before, with hot glue is if I put something in slightly the wrong position, I can snap it off and reposition it by remelting the glue, which is what I had to do for this piece. You'll see in a bit I take off the one side because I worked out I'd stuck it in the wrong position. I'd stuck it too far back. So I just added some more fresh glue and then reattached it, and it worked fine. And then what I do is I run glue on the inside of these backlist pieces, just to add a bit more strength. And then obviously it'll be a little bit stronger still once it's glued onto the model, because it'll be attached to the back of the model in the frame, and that'll make it more of a solid shape. I didn't do the bent wire handle like it shows in the instructions for this little cupboard, because I hate bending little bits of wire to make a handle, so I used a bead and did it that way instead for a little doorknob. This is the back of the shadow box, and this is where I actually used the glue that came in the kit, which is a little bottle of PVA. And I wanted to add that like a texture to the wall, so it looks like, almost looks like there was wallpaper there at some point, but obviously it's really breaking down and like really mouldy and rotten and stuff. So what I did was I applied a layer of PVA glue to the inside of the box, and then I applied over the top of that a layer of kitchen roll. I liked the texture of the kitchen roll to add a little bit of pattern to the background. Only slight though. And then I also like it because once you put the layer of PVA glue over the top, it gives like a nice sort of wrinkly textured effect, which looks like wallpaper and wall that's like breaking down and going mouldy and gungy. So I just coated the outside of the tissue paper, the kitchen roll, with PVA glue as well. And I did that to the two sides as well, just so that if you see the frame from a slight angle, it's still decorated on these edges as well. I didn't worry about the top because no one's going to really look at it from the bottom, and you'll see what I do for the flooring in a bit. So here I'm just adding the kitchen roll like so, and just make sure that you've put plenty of glue on so everything stays in place. And when you apply the tissue paper over the top, put plenty of glue on top as well, and it'll seal that in and make it stay in place, and it will prevent the kitchen roll from breaking down too much when you apply the colour washes over the top or any paint. And then I just trimmed off the excess edge and then went over with a bit more glue just to make sure I got every little spot on those sides so that they wouldn't come off. And then what you need to do once you've done that is take a hairdryer or a hot air gun if you've got one that's like a lowish heat, and use that to dry everything off. Or you could leave it just for an hour or so to dry, but no one's got time for that, so I always use a hot air gun or I use a hairdryer to dry it off a bit quicker. That way I can start painting and working on the next steps faster without having to keep waiting for ages. Otherwise a project like this, instead of taking one day, would take me a few days. So now I'm using some little coffee stirrers. I'm going to use these to make the flooring, and what I'm doing is breaking these up because I want the flooring to look like it's breaking down and it's really in a rough state. And what I'm doing is breaking the coffee stirrers into different lengths. Some I'm keeping intact, and then others I'm breaking at varying lengths. I want it to look like the roof on this has been leaking for quite a while, so the flooring is starting to break down and there's holes in the floor. So you'll see on this side I'm going to start off with, you know, pretty much no gaps apart from like at the ends of the sticks, and then I'll add when I add the sticks to the other side, I will leave a space so it looks like the floor has broken. I like using these because they work well with the scale, because I don't have to trim them down or anything. It's literally just change the length of them, but I don't have to like cut down the width. If you're doing something that would be like sort of Barbie doll scale, then you want to look at sort of lollipop stick tongue depressor size ones. But these are little coffee stirrers are great for this scale. Again, which I think it's 1/24th, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong. So yeah, as you can see now, when I'm applying the others to fill the gaps, I'm leaving spaces so it looks like there's lots of little holes in the floor. I want it to look like the wood has been breaking down because it's damp. Maybe there's woodworm in the building and it's like chewing away at everything. You know, leaves and things are going to be in here as well to show that like the roof's collapsed and the building is breaking down. I want this to look like maybe it's like the side of a kitchen or some little sort of living room or something, or pantry type area, and I want it to look like the previous owner left in a hurry and the place has been empty ever since, and just over time, like say it's been empty for, I don't know, about 50 years or so. So over time everything's breaking down. Here I was going to use the original window design, which is this piece of paper with these little wooden strips stuck on. And I was going to like paint it up to make it look like the windows were a bit dirty and stuff, but I realised after sticking it together that that's not going to really work. It's going to be a bit weird. So I changed to using the window frame with a piece of Perspex behind it. And what I'm doing is behind where the window's going to go, I'm painting the wall black. I want it to look like it's nighttime outside. Or maybe this is backs onto another building or something. So basically I want the window to be dark. And I also add some of my fake moss stuff that I've got in my kit. It didn't come with this model kit, it's just what I've got in my box of miniature goodies. This was like a bag of stuff I got from the local craft store that I've had for a couple of years now, if not longer. And then I stuck the window in place, and I'm going to paint all the window and everything to make the window look all dull as well. And what I'm doing here is I'm just randomly dabbing black paint here and there, and then I'm using lots of water from the paint jar, like the water jar that I used to rinse my brushes off in. I'm using a lot of that because it really waters down the paint, and I want to make it look like water's been running down this wall for ages. And I'm making it darker in the corners at the bottom because that's where the water's been pooling, so that's where most of the mildew is. You know, I want it to look really gungy and dirty. And what I do to create some of the drips is I'll do a dirtier layer, like a darker layer of the paint at the top, and then you'll see me apply some water with my brush over the top of it, and then I tilt up the box to make the colour drip down the walls. I want it to look like loads of water's got into this. This has been like leaking for ages. So there you go, you can see I'm making the drips there. And I added some of the drips to the flooring. And I also, on the sort of less damaged side, I added some brown to make so you could see what the original flooring would have looked like previously. And then obviously dirtied that up as well. The watered down paint doesn't stick very well to the box, so you'll see me go over the areas where the holes are with some acrylic paint on my brush, on a smaller brush with no water, and that filled that gap up a lot better. I probably could have done with just sanding the bottom a bit just to make sure the paint sticks well, but a couple of layers with normal acrylic paint with no water mixed in works fine. So this is just to, sorry about the police car going past. This is to obviously add to those gaps and make those holes look like they go a bit deeper, and obviously get rid of the white because I want this to look really gungy and broken down. and I'm adding more this side than the other because I want it to look like this side of the building has let more water in than the other, even though you won't see all of this because it'll be behind the bookcase that I've got. And I'm adding some more of that colour to the windowsill as well, and a little bit to the perspex that I used for the window. And again, I'm making sure it's really dark in the corners. I want it to look like it's like a super mouldy, manky room. You know, this has been damp for a long time, and you know, it's been closed up for a long time, so everything's just sort of festered inside. For the roof, I just painted it black because no one's going to really see that. And it's got a gap in the top because that's where you would put the battery pack from the kit. But I've already used that for another kit, so I haven't got that. And I like leaving that open because it sort of creates like a sort of skylight effect. So even though the frame is closed, with that hole at the top, it lets enough lighting, ambient lighting from the room, so you can see the details inside the box. And then it was a case of painting all of the outside of the box with 2 layers and letting it dry. So far the background looks like this. Now obviously the furniture is going to look really odd at the minute because I'm just sticking it in as is, but I will paint it and change it so it looks more broken down and older. But for now I'm just gluing them into position. So what I need to do first of all is to start breaking the furniture down. I know it seems a bit pointless me putting it together and then breaking it, but I wanted it to have a hint of its original form, and just break it slightly because it's just starting to break down. For the little cupboard, I wanted to pretend that was quite a solid little cupboard and quite well made, so it's lasted a lot longer than the bookshelves. I was going to do colour washes, but as you can see, the colour washes weren't really sticking. So what I'll do is add some black acrylic paint over the top, and I add some brown as well. So it's brown and black acrylic paint that's watered down. And then once I've done that to both cabinets, I then use some sandpaper to wear off some of the colour. I want it to look like the dirt's really got into the nooks and crevices of these, but have little hints of their original colour showing through so that they look old and worn. Like maybe these have been painted a couple of times and the paint's starting to chip off. I was contemplating doing like a paint peel effect, but I forgot to do that, so I just went with this one instead. Because there is a paint peel effect you can do where you put a layer of paint and PVA glue over the top of your model, and then you dry it, and one dries faster than the other and it can cause like a cracking effect. But I haven't done it for ages. I think you put the glue on first and then put the paint over the top, I think, but I'm not 100% sure. So I just did it this way, so just paint washes and sandpaper. So I'm going to show you here how I do the old aging effect on the shelving unit. So as you can see, I'm adding some brown paint over the top. This is just brown acrylic paint, and I'll do the same to the other shelf. I'm not worried about it being neat. The streakier the better, to be fair, with this effect. And just make sure I cover any of the bright yellow edges. I don't want this to look like a new shelf. And then I use my heat gun to dry off the paint a little bit, like so. And once you've made sure it's dried, it does soak into the wood a little bit, so that I like that effect. And then I turn them over and paint the other side and dry the other side if I haven't already painted it. And then once I've dried that off with my hot air gun, it's then just a case of using a little bit of sandpaper to just rub off some of that paint and just show the grain of the wood coming through, and just make it look like it's been battered and scraped and it just gives it that old sort of really worn look, which I like. And then it's a case of gluing them in place. And I did glue these in wonky on purpose because I want it to look like this cabinet is breaking down, because this side has had more water get inside. So this cupboard has been swelling and expanding with the water and then contracting as it's dried, and that process has happened over and over again, so it's starting to break the cupboard apart and eventually it all collapse. If I had another kit like this and I wanted to show like the next stage, I'd have this cupboard would be thoroughly collapsed and the other one would be starting to break down. I didn't do them massively wonky because I do want to stick some stuff on the shelves. And then I made some of the little bits that were in the kit and found some random stuff out of my box to put on the shelves. I included some dead plants by using some of the plant material that came in the kit and then just painting it with a bit of brown. I added a stick coming in through the roof. I wanted it to look like a tree's growing into the building. Added more plants so it looks like there's like ivy or something growing in through the roof. And then I sprinkled some rose petals that I dried on the floor and put some more moss on so it looks like loads of leaves are getting in. And that's it. That's how to turn a regular miniature kit into an abandoned miniature model. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.